Behave yourself. Go in and take your bath and eat your last meal in this house. Your husband is on his way. Behave yourself. Go in and take your bath and eat your last meal in this house. Your husband is on his way. My dad spoke with a heavy voice. I nodded and obeyed him, supporting my bruised body to get up. I moved towards the open gate, limping my way outside. My mom was outside her hut. She hissed loudly as she saw how bruised I was and could barely walk. A child that would not let his mother sleep. He would not sleep also. She spoke, eyeing me up and down. I ignored her, entering my hut. I was able to peel the torn clothes away from my bruised body. I washed my bruised body with the help of my younger sister. After I was done washing my body, my mom came into the room with a scorn on her face. She applied some coconut healing oil on my body. You caused this. Carry your cross by yourself. You are no longer a child anymore. You are lucky you got married at 15. Me, myself, I got married to your father at the age of 12. My mom said this while she applied the oil on my body. And I asked her, is that why you are so bitter and always seek attention? She stopped applying the treatment on my body and slapped me so hard on my face. I held my cheek as hot tears streamed down my face. Did you think I tried to escape when I was forced to marry your father, eh? You this stubborn he-goat of a child. She asked as I looked at her with tears on my face. Listen to me. There is nothing outside this kingdom, and the people out there are very wicked and they eat human beings. My mom said, that's a lie, Mama. That's a lie they have been telling you all this while. We are living in bondage. Can't you see? I said this to my mother with tears running down my eyes. And she replied, that's enough. Drink up this soup to gain more stamina to satisfy your husband. You never listen to my morning sermons. I doubt if you will be able to please a man or satisfy him on bed. All your sister listened to my morning sermon, but you refuse to listen because you are nothing but a she-goat. My mother said this to me. But Mama, Chief Money is older than you and Papa together. Mechionugi, not one more word from your mouth. I would slap the hell out of you. You must do whatever he says because he owns you now. Your body, your soul, and your life belongs to him. You will live the rest of your life bearing his children and serving his household and his farm. My mom spoke in a different voice. I hated the way she sounded. I would never live my life just bearing children and serving his household. I said within myself. My mom left to check what she was making in the kitchen. I couldn't stop the tears. I can't live such a life that my mom lived. Few minutes later, my brothers came inside the hut and they were like, your husband had come to pick you up. Be a good little wife and bear his children. Don't get him angry because if he beats you and chases you out of his house, you won't be able to step your feet into this house ever again. My brother said this with a grin on his face. I felt like punching his face. Well, since my mom wasn't allowed to come inside the meeting room, she stood outside watching us. Chief Money was seated in the center of the meeting room with his pot belly. He licked his lip lustfully as he gazed at my body. She is a virgin, my father said with a proud smile. Chief Money stood up and walked towards me. My heart skipped a beat as he took his hands in my hands. And he said, I need to start my duty as a husband now. I have to take my sweet bride home and see what's underneath those ripe fruits in front of her. He spoke, licking his disgusting tongue. My dad laughed and was like, virgins are always sweet to the core. I remember the old good days when I married my wives newly. Now they are all loosed. I need a new one to revive my manly system, my father said, and they both laughed. I felt disgusted and uncomfortable as Chief Money won't take his eyes off me. I wasn't ready to engage in sexual activity because I was too young for that. There was no hope left. I just needed to accept my fate. We soon arrived at Chief Money's home after 4 hours riding on his bicycle. His wives hid inside their huts. Guess he had commanded them not to come out. But I saw their faces from their huts. They all wanted to see the new victim. Chief Money turned towards me. And he was like, "This is your new hut. I hope your mom had already told you about all you need to know," he asked. And I nodded. "Good. Go in and prepare yourself," Chief Money said, licking his lips. I entered the hut. I was restless. I sat on the edge of the mat, remembering the words of my mom. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The day was getting more darker. I didn't know exactly where time was, but the moon was out and I knew in no time he would be here. Most men in the village believed that you must make love to your newly wedded wife on full moon. I paced back and forth inside the hut. I heard his footsteps coming towards my hut. I laid on the mat, pretending to be asleep. When he came inside, he laughed sarcastically before joining me on the mat. "I know you are probably scared, but I would make it snappy and painless at the same time," he said, touching my face. I felt irritated by his hands as he squeezed my body and my eyes open. In astonishment and panic, he laughed loudly. "I knew you were not asleep. Come and perform your wifely duty," Chief Money said while he approached me. "Stay away from me. I don't want to be compromised by you disgusting man," I said, taking cautious step away from him. He moved closer and he held me tighter, grabbing my hands. "I am your husband. Your body, soul, and spirit belong to me," he said. "Never," I muttered as I spat on his face. He slapped me across my face, causing my face to register his palm on my face. His powerful hits caused a joint of pain on me. He was so angry. I had never seen a beast like him. He laid me on the mat, yanking my wrappers away from my body. I couldn't let him have his way with me. I kicked him so hard on his manhood, and he screamed in pain. As he let go of me, I immediately picked up my clothes and my little bag at the entrance of my hut, running away from my life. I didn't stop running, not when I was at the edge of escaping. I knew if they should get hold of me, I won't even live to tell the story of what had happened to me. I had already committed an abomination for hitting my husband. I couldn't let them catch me. I ran for my life. Panting heavily, I removed the grasses from the pathway. With my heart beating heavily, I jumped down into the other side of Ikemba Kingdom. I stopped at the bus stop. There were a lot of buses and trailers. People were entering the bus. "Lagos, Lagos, Lagos," the driver announced. More people came rushing inside the bus. I knew exactly that was the bus that would take me to the big city of Lagos. I walked towards the bus, and the driver looked towards me and was like, "You dey go Lagos, Abi?" I nodded my head, and he was like, "5 kobo bere," he said, indicating with his hands. I brought out my cowries, handing it over to him. "Wetin be this nonsense? Like, what is this?" the driver asked in anger. I was paused. "That is money." "Bush girl, you be local girl o. Would you live here abeg? Comot for here jare, ole buruku." The driver backed aggressively. I slowly moved away from the bus. I watched as the bus take off till it was out of sight. It was almost done, and I was a bit worried and confused. I was still gazing at the road when a lady setting her food cafe called me. "Good day, ma," I greeted. "What are you doing here by this time? Don't you have a home to return to?" she asked. "No, ma, I don't." "You don't have a village?" she asked in disbelief. "No, I don't." I paused as my stomach grumbled due to hunger. It was so embarrassing that I took my eyes away from her. "My dear, I understand you must be one of those girls who had run away from their homes. My dear, know that the big city is full of adventures and it is still a cruel place," she said, advising me. But she stopped when she saw that I wasn't paying attention to her advice. Like, she wouldn't even understand me, so why would I pay attention to her? Come help me wash those dirty plates and I would give you some food, she said. After washing the numerous number of dirty plates, she served me rice and cold water. I quickly ate up the food and I rested my back on the plastic chair, relaxing and at the same time letting the food to digest. After some few hours of helping her wash the remaining plates, her pots and so on, she was about to leave since it was almost dark. You need to find where to pass the night at. This place is not too good for a girl to sleep outside. I would have taken you home to pass the night, but I can't risk it. My husband needs to approve me taking a stranger home. She mumbled an apology. I would be fine out here, I said, encouraging myself. Take this 10 kobo and keep it for yourself, she said, opening her apron wallet containing money. Thank you so much, ma. Now God go bless you. I thank her on my knees. No, get up, she said, helping me on the feet. I helped her pack her pot and plate on her wheelbarrow. I watched as she left the place. I walked aimlessly along the road. I was still wondering who would help me when I suddenly bumped on someone. Are you blind? Like you know the sea road? The man said with an angry voice. I am so sorry, sir. I apologized as I raised my head to meet his face. Chioma, what are you doing here? He asked with his face all pale. It was the village typewriter. I hesitated a bit before I spoke. I ran away from home. What? Why did you run away from home? He asked in astonishment, but I remained silent. I didn't want to say any more words. He nodded in understanding, knowing the reason I had run away from home. But where are you going to? He asked. I don't have any place to stay, I replied. This place isn't safe for girls as naive as you are. Come along with me, he mentioned. I knew I shouldn't trust him. His eyes were already staring at my body. I knew he was no better than Chief Money, but I couldn't reject his offer, cause this place wasn't safe for girls. I nodded at him as he led the way to his house. My eyes scanned everything, looking at the whole place. I had never seen so much cement house. Only the king in our village owned a small cement house. I had always knew we were living in bondage. The house was grey with green windows. I could not tell where the house began and where it ended because it was joined to the other houses in the streets. I had never seen such a house, not even in the book I read. Why does this house look joined? I asked him. He looked at me and was surprised that I even know about house and I had seen one before. Well, I answered his unasked question. I had seen houses in book that I read. He nodded before he spoke. This house is an estate building. You haven't seen such a house before. He opened the door into what looked like a tunnel, but it was a hall with flowered wall. It was narrow and it seemed at first as if there were no windows. When we got to his house, he opened the door and showed me into his room. It has a single bed and a chair with a small table where he kept his typewriter machine. This is where you would live with me, he said, looking towards me. He said I should go and have my bath, and he showed me how things are being done there. Okay, I would give you some privacy, but if you ever encounter any problem, don't forget to call me, he said, turning away after staring at me for some few minutes. I was sure that he was gone and I slowly took off my clothes and stepped into the shower. I took my bath, but I stood under the shower for some minutes before I dried my body with the towel and wore my clothes back. I put the door open and was shocked to find him at the door staring at me. My gaze were on him. I was just checking on you, he stuttered amidst his word, but I didn't respond. He was basically watching me the whole time when I was taking my bath. Any man who was caught in this act in my village is being stoned to death. It was a law that had been there since the days of our forefathers. I will go check something outside. He awkwardly walked outside of the room, even before I could respond. I gently sat on the bed for some few hours, touching and looking at any book I could find on his table. I got to read some few books before I slept off. I was still sleeping when I felt someone caressing my body. The hand kept touching me, but my eyes flew open when I felt the touch on my legs. My eyes opened from shock and it slowly turned to terror. There he was, half naked, looking at me intensively. "What are you doing here?" I asked in hushed voice. "Come on, baby girl. You are not a child and certainly not a virgin." He spoke, staring at me. "I am sorry, but I don't want to do this, please. I am sorry. You would have to satisfy my urge. I am hungry and I need you to satisfy my hunger." He spoke, staring at me. "Then go and eat. I am not your food." I barely spoke before he pulled me into his small bed, joined me into the bed, trying to remove my clothes. I fought with all my might, but he was too strong for me. I was no match for his strength. He laid on me. His heavy weight almost crushed me. I felt suffocated. Tears rolled down my eyes. I felt his dirty lips trying to kiss me. "Please don't do this to me," I pleaded, trying to get him off me. "Don't pretend as if I am hurting you. I am only doing you a favor," he responded as he rested his head against my small neck. He brought out his lip against my lip, trying to kiss me, but I bite his lips so hard. He screamed in pain as he began to insult me in anger. He slapped me across my face. "You stupid girl! How dare you use your dirty teeth to bite me?" he said, slapping me repeatedly. He held my head and slammed it against his table repeatedly. "I would use you till you die," he said in deep anger as he struggled to remove his clothes. I knew I needed to act fast. He was frantically pulling off his clothes when I saw a small kitchen knife. I quickly grabbed the knife and I hid it under my stomach. He came charging at me with his swollen lips and red eyes. I paused, holding my tears back as he laid on top of me, trying to pull my clothes. "You stupid girl! How dare you?" His eyes suddenly widened and his face paled. As I pulled out the knife, I had to stab him on his stomach. While he was busy trying to remove my clothes, I reached for the knife. "Ah! Ah!" He screamed in pain. I stood up, frantically adjusting my clothes. His screams were so loud and I knew that in no time the neighbors would soon come. I frantically picked up his trousers. I checked it and fortunately for me, I found some little cash. I had little time left. He fell on the floor, gushing for breath. I had never seen so much blood before. I couldn't believe he hadn't passed out yet. I twisted the doorknobs and I realized that he had locked the door. The whole room was disorganized. I checked the room frantically for the keys, but to no avail. Soon enough, like I had predicted, the neighbors came knocking at the door. His breathing were slow and he kept struggling to stand, but he couldn't. Immediately he had passed out. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't want him to die in my hands. I couldn't escape. The neighbors were at the door. After a few minutes, the neighbors began to break the door from outside since they had no spare key to his apartment. I feared what would happen to me if they see me here. I quickly hid behind the window curtain. The fabric of the curtain was both thick and thin, black in color. The door was swung open. Their eyes widened as they saw him in his own blood. The huge man who first walked inside checked his pulse and see if he was alive. Hold and behold, they began to say they should call the ambulance, that he is not dead yet, but if they delay him any longer, he would eventually lose his life. He spoke in a tone of urgency. The whole apartments were filled with people and I knew that was the right time to escape. I would have to disguise as a neighbor too who came to watch what was happening. I sneaked out of the room, keeping my face on the floor. I was almost at the edge of the exit stairs when some men approached me. "And where do you think you are going to?" I heard a huge, thick male voice. My heart skipped a bit. I turned towards them and perfectly hid my nervous and scared face. "And how may I help you?" I asked them. They scratched their head, gazing at each other. "Boss, it be like she no be the lady where you carry come, oh. This one sabi speak English. And na village girl you carry come, oh." The neighbor said. The boss was like, "Madam, where did they go by this night and where did they stay? Now almost 2 a.m. for morning be this, so." He asked me. I looked at him and I told him I was the lady who cleaned the estate. You see, I had seen someone earlier that night picking up dirties around the estate. And when I asked him about the person, he said the lady was the new cleaning agent. She's in charge of cleaning the estate. Oh, I beg, no vex, madam. Now you be the young cleaner wey come new? He asked me, and I nodded, praying for him to end the conversation faster before the other neighbors get down. Oh, we dey sorry. We are the security person for this estate, and I haven't seen you before. Now why I dey ask you this question? I beg, no vex for us. No problem. I would love to resume back to work, I said, holding my breath. They both nodded, and I took cautious steps till I left the estate, and I began to run for my life. I ran non-stop till I was certain I had reached the bus stop. Lagos, Lagos, Lagos here, the driver announced as passengers entered the bus. One seat left, he announced. I quickly rushed towards where he stood. How much for Lagos? I asked him. 10 kobo, ere. Now wetin you go give me? Fuel price just dey increase anyhow. Now wow for this government. I quickly handed the cash over to him, not paying attention to what he was saying. After checking if everything was intact, he entered the bus and soon we started the journey to Lagos.